Hi, I'm Matthew Callen. I'm a sophomore student at OHS, and I will be reading page 161 to 181 of The One and Only Ivan. I lie awake, peeling dried red paint off of my fingertips. Bob, who accidentally walked into one of my paintings, is licking his red paws. Every so often, I glance over at the empty ring. The claw stick glance in the moonlight. Stop, no! Ruby's frantic cries startle me. Ruby, I call. You are having a bad dream. You're okay. You're safe. Where's Stella, she asks, gulping air. Before I can answer, she says, never mind, I remember now. Go back to sleep, Ruby, I say. You've had a hard day. I can't go back to sleep, she says. I'm afraid I'll have the same dream. There was a sharp stick and it hurt. I look at Bob. He looks back at me. Oh, Ruby says. Oh, Mac. She puts her trunk between the bars. Do you think, she hesitates, do you think Mac is mad because I hurt him today? I consider lying, but gorillas are terrible liars. Probably, I finally say. He ran away after that, Ruby says. Bob gives a scornful laugh. Crawled away is more like it. We are quiet for a while. Branches claw at the roof. A light rain drums. One of the parrots murmurs something in her sleep. Ruby breaks the silence. Ivan. I smell something funny. He can't help it, Bob says. I believe she's referring to the finger paints Julia gave to me, I say. What are finger paints? Ruby asks. You may take pictures with them, I explain. Could you take a picture of me? Maybe someday. I remember Julia's picture, the one that will be worth millions of dollars. I hold it up to the glass. Look, it's you. Julia made it. It's hard to see, Ruby says. There's not much moonlight. Why do I have two trunks? I examine the picture. Those are feet. Why do I have 2 feet? That's the artistic license, Bob says. Ruby sighs. Could you tell me another story, she asks. I don't think I can ever go back to sleep. I told you all I remember, I say with a helpless shrug. Then tell me a new story, she says. Make something up. I try to think, but my thoughts keep returning to Mac and his new claw stick. Anything yet? Ruby asks. I'm working on it. Ivan, Ruby presses. Bob said you were going to have to save me. I search for true words. I'm working on that too. Ivan, Ruby says in a voice so low I can barely hear her. I have another question. I can tell from the sound of her voice that this will be a question I don't want to answer. Ruby taps her trunks against the rusty iron bars of her door. Do you think, she asks, that I'll die in this domain someday, like Aunt Stella? Once again, I consider lying, but when I look at Ruby, the half-formed words die in my throat. Not if I can help it, I say instead. I feel something tighten in my chest, something dark and hot. And it's not domain, I add. I pause and then I say it. It's a cage. I look at the ring, layered with fresh sawdust. I look at the skylight, the half-hidden moon. I just thought of a story, I say. It's made up from a... Is it a made-up story or a true one? Ruby asks. True, I say. I hope. Ruby leans against the bars. Her eyes hold the pale moon in them, the way a still pond holds stars. Once upon a time, I say, there was a baby elephant. She was smart and brave, and she needed to go to a place called a zoo. What's a zoo? Ruby asks. A zoo, Ruby, is a place where humans make amends. A good zoo is a place where humans care for animals and keep them safe. Did the baby elephant get to the zoo? Ruby asks softly. I don't answer right away. Yes, I say at last. How did she get there? Ruby asks. She had a friend, I say, a friend who made a promise. It takes a long time, but finally Ruby returns to sleep. Ivan, Bob whispers, yawning. What you said about the zoo, how are you going to do it? Suddenly I feel as if I could sleep for 1,000 days. I don't know, I admit. You'll think of something, Bob says confidently, as his voice trails off and his eyes close. What if I don't, I ask, but Bob is already asleep. His little red feet dance, and I know he's running in his dreams. Bob and Ruby sleep on. I don't sleep. I think about the promise I made to Stella and the pictures I made for Ruby, and I remember it all. We were clinging to our mother, my sister and I, when the humans killed her. They shot my father next, and then they chopped off their hands, their feet, their heads, There is a cluttered, musty store near my cage. They sell an ashtray there. It is made from the hand of a gorilla. When the morning comes and the parking lot glimmers with dew, I see the billboard on the highway. There I am, the one and only Ivan, bathed in pink light of dawn. I look so angry with my furrowed brow and clenched fists. I look the way my father did, the day the men came. I am, I suppose, a peaceful sort. Mostly I watch the world go by and think about naps and bananas and yogurt raisins. But inside me, hidden, is another Ivan. He could tear a grown man's limbs off his body. In the flicker of time it takes a snake's tongue to taste the air, he could taste revenge. He is the Ivan on the billboard. I stare at the one and only Ivan, the faded picture of Stella, and I remember George and Mac on their ladders, adding the picture of Ruby to bring visitors to the Exit 8, Big Top Mall, and Video Arcade. I remember the story Ruby told, the one where villagers came to her rescue. I hear Stella's kind, wise voice. Humans can surprise you sometimes. I look at my fingers, coated in red paint, the color of blood, and I know how to keep my promise. During the days, I wait. During the nights, I paint. I worry when Mac takes Ruby into the ring. He carries the claw stick with him all the time now. He doesn't use it. He doesn't have to. Ruby isn't fighting back anymore. She does whatever Mac asks. I close my eyes and dip my fingers into the paint. When I'm done with one piece of paper, I set it aside to dry. It's so small, just one sheet, and I'm going to need so many. I move on to the next, and the next. It's a giant puzzle, and I'm making pieces one by one. By morning, my floor is covered in paintings. I hide the paintings under my pool of dirty water before Mac can see them. I don't want them to end up in the gift store, selling for $20 a piece, $25 with a frame. These paintings are for Ruby, every one of them. Ivan, Ruby asks in the morning, when I am trying to nap, why are you always so sleepy during the day? I've been working on a project at the night, I tell her. What's the project? It's a thing, a painting. It's a painting for you, actually, I answer. Ruby looks pleased. Can I see it? Not yet. Ruby pokes with annoyance at her roped foot. She takes a breath. Ivan, do I have to do the shows with Mac today? I'm afraid so. Sorry, Ruby. Ruby dips her trunk in her water bucket. That's okay, she says. I already knew the answer. It's night again, and everyone's asleep. I look at the picture I just made, one of dozens. It's smudged and torn, a muddy blur. I place it beside the others lining my floor. The colors are wrong, the shapes are off, and it looks like nothing. It's not what I'm trying to create, and it's not what it's meant to be. It's not right, and I don't know why. Across from the parking lot, the billboard beckons, as it always does. Come to Exit 8, Big Top Mall and Video Arcade, home of the one and only Ivan, mighty Silverback. If I could use human words to say what I need to say, this would be so easy. Instead, I have my pots of paint and my rag pages. I sigh. My fingertips glow like jungle flowers. I try again. I watched Ruby plod around her ring in endless circles, going nowhere. More visitors have been coming, but not many. Max says Ruby is not picking up the slack after all. He says he's cutting back on her food. He says he's turning off the heat at night to save money. Ruby looks thinner to me, more wrinkled than Stella ever was. Do you think Ruby's eating enough? I ask Bob. I don't know. I'll tell you one thing, though. You're sure as heck painting enough. Bob wrinkles his nose. That stench is unbelievable, and I found yellow paint in my tail this morning. Bob isn't happy about my night painting. He says it's unnatural. Now, while I work at my art, Bob sleeps on a knot tag. He claims he prefers her because she doesn't snore. He says her belly doesn't rise and fall to make him seasick. What is the plan of yours, anyway? Bob asks. If you explained it to me, I could help out. He gnaws at his tail. Maybe I could come up with something that doesn't involve, paint. I can't explain it, I tell him. It's an idea in my head, but I can't get it right. And anyway, I'm almost out of supplies. I should have known I wouldn't have enough. I kick at my tire swing. It's spattered with drops of blue paint. It's a stupid idea. I doubt that, Bob says. Smelly, yes. Stupid, never.